Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. Happy February. It's just after 1 p.m. And we are continuing to go through the FY27 budget. And today we have the Department for Children and Families, aka DCF, with us to present their budget. So welcome. Before we start, I just want to let everybody know that we have officially announced our 2 public hearings for the FY27 budget for those that are interested in coming in. I don't know where they get sent out into the universe, but they're out there. But it's going to be next week, Thursday, February 12th, from 12:45 to 3:15 p.m. And then the following Thursday, February 19th, from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And these will be joint hearings with Senate Appropriations, and I believe we've reserved room 11 for both of those, right? 1:45 to 3:15. Yeah, okay. So do they sign up with you or with Al?
There's a link.
There's a link to the sign up. Okay. And that's on the General Assembly website too. So just wanted to let everybody know about that. Okay, so we'll turn it over to DCF. You can introduce yourselves and take it away. We have lots of papers.
Hi.
For the record, Megan Smeaton, I am the CFO for DCF. And I'm Sandy Hall, I'm the interim commissioner for DCF. And I think you got our very exciting publication of the DCF budget.
Lots of stuff.
Yes, budget book and annual report. We're very excited about producing that for you. So you can use that. This, as we go through the slides, I'm going to give an overview. Megan she'll go line by line, and then there's a deeper dive in that budget book.
Share the slides.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. So the secretary was here last week and she explained to you how we went about establishing our budgets within the departments. The agency as a whole looked at what we were forced to consider for cuts. So it was a tough process, but I think we are bringing forth some decisions that we think are the right ones to propose. So, as you know, the DCF's mission is to foster the healthy development, safety, well-being, and self-sufficiency of Vermonters. And we provide benefits, services, and supports to some 200,000 Vermonters every year, including children, youth, families, older Vermonters, and people with disabilities.
I'm trying to share, but it says the host isn't allowing me to share. Oh, no.
Got it.
You gotta be in the right mood.
You have to ask twice.
We like to share here.
There we go.
Okay,
All right.
that's, yeah, this is
Finish that.
Middle size of the 3 dots.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and so some of the changes that you'll see is a 4.7% increase to the state fiscal year 26 budget, a 6.6% decrease to special fund, 14.3% increase to general fund, and a comprehensive $31.4 million housing initiative.
When you say special fund, we're not talking global commitment. What are we talking? Are there various special funds?
There are various special funds, yes. So those can be, they come from specific sources and they're for specific purposes. So for example, one of the larger decreases is the child care contribution fund is just, and that's one of our larger special funds.
And then here you'll see the differences in the past proposed and the state fiscal year 27 recommended budgets. And then we were asked to show the major federal funding sources. So it's broken down by division here.
I just want to pause for a second going back on the special fund because you mentioned it. And to just let people know that the upgraded consensus revenue forecast included a downgrade in that, which I assume is why we have this downgrade here. That is the reason that it came about for people that may not understand why that happened.
Yes.
So, yeah, John.
How many special funds do you have?
I don't know that number at the top of my head. but I can get
Yeah,
to
don't-
that.
yeah, if you don't know,
Um,
okay.
Statewide, there
Just
are
curious.
over 400, I think. So, We have the special fund report from Adam somewhere. Take a look.
Actually, in our budget book, at the end, the last section of the budget book lists all of our special funds.
Look at that tool you have.
That's a great way to get us to look at that.
I heard it's excellent reading.
Okay, thank you. So funding sources.
And these are the largest federal funding sources, broken down with the amounts.
See, so it's what department within your division or division within your department? Division, okay.
This is how much we earned in state fiscal year 25.
When you say earned, you mean from the federal funding?
Yeah, how much we drew down.
What's 4E, Title 4E?
One of FSD's larger funding sources, it funds a lot of our child welfare supports, and it's an entitlement, so the more that we spend, the more we can draw down. It's not like capped at a certain amount.
Okay. So DCF initiatives and adjustments for state fiscal year 26, caseloads, the FSD subsidized adoptions and substitute care, ESD reach out support services, GA personal needs and incidentals, aid for the aged, blind and disabled, and 3 Squares Vermont.
And when you say, is that an initiative or an adjustment or what, why are they showing up there for caseloads?
I mean, we'll get into it more as we go through, but we adjust our caseloads up or down depending on what we're seeing
So
every
these are
year.
adjustments, okay.
But I'm sorry, are we
Go ahead.
talking about FY 26 or 27?
We were asked to do highlights of what happened over the
Last
last
year,
year,
okay.
and then we'll get to what's happening
Okay.
this year.
All right.
So I won't go through these, but you'll just look at them, or you want me to?
No, any highlights you want to mention of the ones that are here, if there's anything in particular that you particularly want to highlight?
I'd highlight them all. But
Why don't you go
we're gonna go through them one by one.
including the initiatives there? 'cause
Yeah.
that's probably- Okay,
Mhm, yeah. So the one-time appropriations, temporary secure treatment facility funding, and then the housing initiative.
here's the temporary secure. Is that Red Clover? Or is this something else?
Yes, so that is for Red Clover.
I thought you were asking where it was on the slide. I'm thinking it's right there.
Just so that we're all clear, how many youth are served at Red Clover, by Red Clover?
Or bed capacity.
Or beds, okay, and is there, so this is a one-time appropriation in addition to a base appropriation for this. What's the base again for that line item?
So the base is about 4 million, and I have a worksheet that I can share with you that walks through the various components of it. We have carry forward that we have to support that, one-time carry forward. We also have a one-time appropriation that we have to support that. And then over and above all of that, we also are asking for a base increase to this approach.
So the, and the total then of all those different funding streams?
I would be able to get it, except I'm sharing my screen right now, so it's
Okay.
hard for me to.
And we're gonna get to
Yeah.
that. This
Okay,
is just the overview.
Okay,
thanks.
Okay. Next. So administration and economic services, it's composed of 4 sub-budgets: the commissioner's office, business office, economic services division, admin, and IT costs. ESD admin includes salaries for all ESD staff and operating funds, as well as an assortment of grants, mostly SNAP related.
well, it looks like you saved some money, or if it's in red there.
Yeah, so the reds are reduction. So we had some administrative efficiencies, and then we'll talk through some of our reductions further.
Okay, because that's right, this is for 27, and some the federal government eliminated, and some you're choosing to, Wayne?
Just backing up for a second, what's the housing initiative, 21.2 million?
So we will go through that in the budget, but we have, that's the one-time appropriations that we're requesting.
What?
It's all in your narrative too,
Building housing?
that building houses.
So why don't we wait till they get to the detail, but this is in FY, this is in fiscal year 26. It says,
This is incorrect, it needs to say 1/7.
okay, that's why we're confused.
I can see why that would be confusing.
Okay, so these are 27 proposed, okay. All right. Continue.
Okay. So, Family Services Division, FSD works in partnership with families, communities, and others to make sure children and youth are safe from abuse, their basic needs are met, and youth are free from delinquent behavior. They also ensure families are supported to achieve these goals. You see the summary and highlights, but we're getting into that after.
Okay,
So the next graph you see is a decrease in substitute care, that's the sub-care caseloads. Such as we've seen over the past 2 years, it means that fewer youth are coming into DCF custody. And then there's an increase in the subsidized adoptions. So that means youth are finding permanent homes.
you had an increase in foster parents?
I think Erica is on, we can ask her. How about we come back to that?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, hi, I'm here,
Oh,
Erica
Suzanne.
Radke, FSD Deputy Commissioner. What was the question?
Has there been an increase in foster parents or foster families?
No, there has not been an increase. We actually have had a decrease recently, and we're planning on trying to do an initiative, which is why we had the Caregiver Summit in October of last year to try to really get to the root cause of what's happening with the decrease in foster families.
Thank you.
And the Child Development Division, CDD, improves the well-being of Vermont children by developing and administering a continuum of high-quality, comprehensive child development and family support services that promote health and well-being, school readiness, and foundations for lifelong success.
So the summary you'll get into.
Yeah, we do know that there are more families getting financial assistance, 5,000 more families, and we started to turn the curve on stopping the decline of programs and slowly building. And the mix of the programs has changed. Okay, that's what this starts. And then Office of Child Support, OCS improves children's economic security by establishing, enforcing, and modifying child support orders for children who do not live with both parents, and collecting, recording, and distributing child support payments through the OCS registry. Aid to the Aged, Blind, and Disabled, AABD. This program provides a financial supplement to recipients of federal SSI who are over 65, disabled or blind, and do not have sufficient income to provide a reasonable substantive substance needed for their well-being as defined by 33 VSA Chapter 13. It also funds the Essential Person Program by providing cash assistance to household members whose care is essential to an aged or disabled person in the home. Caseloads for AABD supplementary SSI payments have continued to steadily trend downward over the past 2 state fiscal years.
Is that because there are fewer people that qualify, or people are staying on, or any sense of why that is?
The decline in AABD average caseload is fewer people qualifying?
Right, if people get older, they are not with us any longer, so that could be part of it too. I just wondered if you knew that. Okay. Okay.
And then general assistance, GA provides emergency financial assistance to eligible individuals and families. This may include help paying for personal needs and incidentals, housing, fuel and utilities, medical and burial costs.
We will go into this because I'm sure people
Yes.
know about the big decrease there.
And then the governor's housing initiative, shelter expansion funding, OEO, family-specific sheltering option, DV and SV sheltering option, shelter planning and startup investments, Dale, the medically vulnerable sheltering option, DDH and OEO, the SUD recovery sheltering option, and
What page are you on? Sorry.
20.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Okay, so will you go over this in more detail? Because this is certainly the first in this committee that we're hearing about this. Okay.
There's a little bit more detail on the housing initiative for the positions needed and the transition plan, the thing for that, but again, we'll get into it. Other housing investments. And then Three Squares Vermont is the federal supplemental nutrition assistance program, which provides low-income households better access to a healthy diet while supporting American agriculture. Reach Up helps eligible parents gain job skills and find work so they can support their minor dependent children. Services include education, employment supports, case management services, and monthly cash payments to pay for basic necessities. And Reach Up caseloads have been decreasing over the past year, which contrasts with our projected increase in caseloads we used for last year's budget, resulting in projected savings. And looking at historical data, you can see that there have been fluctuations. They've gone up and down over the years, and we've always adjusted our budget to reflect it. Low-income heating and energy assistance program, LIHEAP, DCF's fuel assistance program has two components: seasonal fuel assistance operated by the Economic Services Division and crisis fuel assistance operated by the state's 5 community action agencies. And then the Office of Economic Opportunity, OEO. OEO administers funds to help organizations address poverty through community initiatives and direct services in the areas of financial capability, homelessness assistance, and community services. This includes core federal funding for community action agencies and homeless shelter and service providers.
Some of those summary things we've seen in other of your summaries, so it's duplicative. It's not in addition to the ones we've already seen in previous pages, correct?
Yes, the housing initiative was sort of called out separately in those earlier slides.
Right, and the
Showing where-
hop is also from another.
Yeah.
OEO weatherization, the low income home weatherization assistance program reduces energy costs for low income families by improving the energy efficiency and comfort of their homes while ensuring their health and safety. The home weatherization assistance program provides state funding for weatherization through a fuel tax on all non-transportation fuels sold in the state. And then the secure residential treatment facility. We talked about that a little bit. Base funding for short-term crisis stabilization program. And we'll get into that more. Disability Determination Services, DDS, provides applicants with accurate medical eligibility decisions as quickly as possible, is governed by Social Security, federal statutes, regulations, and policy, with full and fair consideration of each applicant's situation and respect and concern for the individual's well-being and legal rights. And we just wanted to highlight the DDS outcomes. The average initial case processing time is 70.5 days. The national average is 190 days. And the initial decisional accuracy is 99%, which is among the top 10 states. And then you have the number of claims they processed.
And while we're pausing to get to the next whatever, I just want to recognize that Chair Wood from Health, Human Services is here also. Please, if you have questions, just let us know. Just reach it. That's right. Or you can sit in one of the other two chairs if you'd like to. You're good? Okay.
Now Megan's gonna go through the spreadsheet, right?
Yes, so you should have received the ups downs for DCF, yes, that sheet. Within the budget book, there's a section called the narrative, and it has all of a description of every line item in there. We broke out the housing initiative separate in the budget book, so as you go through the narrative section of the budget book, whenever you hit one of the initiative lines, it'll say C initiative, and that's at the bottom, just because we have 13 appropriations. It means that some parts are like scattered about for just like tracking sake. It's kind of hard to see the whole picture unless you're looking at it as a cohesive picture. So that's why we kind of broke them out separately in the budget narrative.
And I see that Rep. Moretti has a question. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just to go backwards a little bit, I saw the 24 million for LIHEAP. There was some concerns last year about the federal government either cutting that down or closing offices around that. Is that federal money or is that state money?
It's federal money. We are adjusting our budget to account for the federal award. We did not see a significant decrease or change in our federal LIHEAP award this year, despite having heard those similar things. But every year for the last couple of years, we've had to put in what's called an ERR, an excess revenue receipt request. Yes. And they to get the extra money. And so we're just building it in now that we see that the federal LIHEAP award seems to be continuing at the current amount.
Thank you.
Get to more of that when we go through the ups downs. So I am going to start going through the ups downs. I can skip over the salaries and fringe and up and like
Any of the standard stuff, we don't want to, we just don't talk about it at all. It's really any of the big stuff that we see or things that are changing. So I'm looking at some, red in $1 million and up in federal funds.
Yeah,
Those
so
kinds of things would be good to know.
if we start at the top, the first things that you'll see in admin that aren't just like the standard boilerplate adjustments is the TANF revenue realignment. We are adjusting where our TANF revenue is able to be spent based on where we can maximize our state dollars in terms of meeting our maintenance of effort requirements and exceeding them. And so for that reason, we are moving our federal funds to reach up and putting general fund in admin. It's just a net neutral transfer.
Maybe net neutral to you, but it sounds like you're using $1 million of general fund, and that's not neutral to us.
No, the general fund was already appropriated in reach up, and so we're swapping. So we're sending $1 million. It's actually three.
Three, it's gotta be three if that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's admin, FSD, and reach up. And so we have certain expenses that we can count towards our maintenance of effort and others that we can't. And we want to exceed our maintenance of effort because that allows us to buy down our work participation rate. And so we need the general fund in the places where we can meet our maintenance of effort requirements. And then the federal funds can go to the places where we have expenses that are eligible for federal, but not maintenance of
Right, so
effort.
you're still using all the federal funds, just in different places. Okay, great, thank you.
So that's the first line. We have a temp staff cut, and so that is eliminating 2 temp positions one within the business office and one within the commissioner's office as part of our administrative efficiencies this year to meet our budget requirements. We are eliminating 1 position from ESD, a Reach First admin position. When we get to the Reach Up appropriation, we are also cutting the Reach First program. And so as a result, the position is no longer needed as well.
So we can skip these littler ones,
Okay.
and then whoever has those can ask you if we've got questions, but when you get to 2.8 million,
2.8, got it.
I'm interested.
Okay. So, HR one had some different provisions around SNAP this year that impacted us. And so one of them was that the federal share for the admin costs of SNAP would go from a 50% federal match to a 25% federal match. And that impacts our admin appropriation pretty significantly. There's actually 3 lines on here. It's kind of hard. We have to break it out by personal services, operating, and grants out. And so you have to kind of add those 3 lines up. But it's about 4.5 million of lost federal revenue.
4.5,
Yeah,
and is that for a full year?
but 3/4 of a year because it starts on 10/1.
Yeah, can I ask a
Yeah, please.
question? Because I was trying to add things up and going back to earlier fall projections on the federal cuts and the impact on the state budget. The figure that I've seen most frequently is 8.4 million for a year.
Yeah, and so I think that there's a lot of things that go into that. That 8.4 million, I believe, came from the FFIS calculations, which is a system that provides information to states on different federal programs. And so that would be the amount of federal admin that we were matching as a state, but the state wasn't putting forward the full match, right? We have partners that put forward some match for us. And also we have this summer EBT program, which has been diverting some of our staff time to that, which didn't lose the 50%. It's staying at the 50% admin. And so when we reran our cost allocation plan with new criteria in place and sort of like use that to project out for the year, the amount that we were actually losing was slightly lower than what the FIS had put out there for Vermont. So like, for example,
But by 2 million?
yeah. We allocate our costs across a bunch of different federal funding sources. So sometimes when one funding source goes away, it can like cascade down to another funding source. At the end of the day, it was about 6.5 million that we were projecting having
For an
an annualized cost. Yeah.
And you mentioned community partners or other partners that help pay. You said something I didn't get it.
Yeah, so sometimes we have certain programs where we don't put the match up, we just draw in the federal revenue and a partner will say like, oh, we have these expenses that we can put forward as match.
So who would a partner be? Trying to figure out who that would be. Oh, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Director Veronica Grant, Deputy Commissioner of Economic Services Division. Full of examples would be Hunger for Vermont, Councils on Aging.
Go ahead.
Those are partners. that-
Yeah, okay, good, thanks. I just want to understand what that means. Okay. Do you have a question when you have that look?
So we're still on the first page where SNAP admin federal change, we're talking about the 2.85 million change. Okay.
That we've had to pick up in general fund because the match has gone down, that what the federal government's going to be willing to match.
And that's issued through EBT cards,
Sorry.
EBT cards. Part of that.
So the EBT cards themselves, the funding that goes out in the EBT cards is really dependent on the error rate that ESD has. And so we don't know, we're hopeful that it will continue to be 0, the state share. And that money doesn't flow through us. The only money that flows through us on the EBT cards is the cash out portion. The rest of it goes directly from the feds to people.
So it all flows through the feds.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just the administrative piece from DCF. Dave?
When does the requirement that beneficiaries have to reapply? Is it once every 6 months?
So again, we have annually, and there is like an interim report, so it's 6 months, but then we also have the majority of our population is on a 3-year cycle now.
But are we going, is it Medicaid in general is the 6 months? What? Is SNAP eligibility is not every 6 months?
So you are certified for a year, but then we have a check-in at the 6 month. So it's a smaller.
Is that check-in, is that something that's been around for a while or is that new?
Nope, that's been around.
So are there any new federal requirements that put demands on our staff to administer the SNAP program?
Not at this time, no.
Are there some being contemplated that you're aware of?
And you'll have to forgive me because I'm creating the state. There are some states, and there's one in particular that I think they were asked because there was some allegations of fraud to do renewals of their population, but at this time that isn't something that can come up.
How many approximately, if you know, how many beneficiaries on SNAP do we have?
It's
I was gonna say 67,000 or something, is that?
Can you share with us how our error rates are at this time?
So we don't have an official rate. We're getting that from the feds in a couple of months, but our unofficial is below the 6% mark for last federal fiscal year. So at this time, Vermont would not be looking at having to return the federal benefits.
Is there much headroom? Are we close to the 6%?
Like 5 point. Yeah.
Somewhat close.
Yes.
So the only change at the moment to SNAP is the match rate has been reduced from 50% to 25%, and the state has to pick up that extra 25%. That's it for SNAP right now. Medicaid's a whole other story, but that's it.
There are some other changes that happened.
Okay.
For example, as we get down to the next section of the admin budget, you'll see that we are eliminating our SNAP education program because that was eliminated.
Feds already got rid of that last year, though, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Can you just say a little something for everybody, like what that is, what it does, and what is lost?
Yeah, happy to. So that was a program that's administered predominantly through the health department. And it was, the focus was on how to prepare healthy meals on a budget, food education, etc. And some of those grantees that weren't also the health department were that Abenaki helping Abenaki come alive outside, People's Farm Stand and Village, hydroponics, UVM extension, Vermont Food Bank. Those were some of the partners that had this funding.
And John had a question, then Teresa.
It's, can you just remind us what hydrogen, the error rate, what does that stand for?
Yeah.
I know we heard about here, but I just want to.
It's been a few months for us.
Yeah, it's been a little.
Yes, and I'm happy to, I will also follow up with something in writing, because my resource director is far more articulate, but it's a combination of both errors that we make, so if we did incorrectly determine the case, but it's also in combination with if a client fails to report information to us, as well as our timeliness on acting on cases. So it's really quite a bundle of items, and we are doing everything that we can within our system to try to make sure that we're keeping the error rate down. How, if we're noticing trends and errors within our staff, targeted training to try to make sure that we're addressing those quickly, trying to make sure that we're educating those that are on the program the importance of providing us timely information and anything that changes.
Sure, so if it exceeds that 6% threshold.
We pay.
Then yes, then we'll pay, and it's incremental. So you can, as a state, then it pays more depending on how high your error rate is.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Teresa, you
Yeah, that's, we're still on SNAP. I'm recalling back when we learned of the changes in HR 1, that the original estimates were around, I think, $7.5 million for the SNAP admin increased cost to the state. And I realize it's only 9 months worth contained in here because the federal fiscal year, but those numbers don't, they aren't comparable. So I'm trying to figure out, were our original estimates too high? Because 3/4 of that original $7.5 million isn't what is in here.
Yes, we actually, I think before you got here.
You
talked about
asked that, somebody
yeah.
asked that question, okay.
But it's a combination of having, partners that can contribute part of our match and, Miranda gave some examples of those partners, like Hunger Free Vermont. And then also having other federal funding sources like summer EBT that are drawing away some of our admin costs and that's remaining at 50% share of time. And then just an estimate from 1 year to the next is never perfect. And so, we reran the cap and did it for our cost allocation plan and projected that forward, and it came in a little bit lower than the 7.5.
Thank you.
So is this the only money that flows through EBT cards?
No, so our 3 squares appropriation, which is coming, it's several appropriations further down, has all of the cash out money, and that's about 53 million. And that's for individuals who receive a cash benefit, they're elderly or disabled. And then anyone who does not get a cash benefit, they get a food benefit on the EBT cards. That doesn't go through our budget at all. The feds put that directly on the cards to the individuals. And then there's other ways that we use our EBT cards for like benefits that are not SNAP related as well.
The reason why I ask, I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around, what's going through those SNAP cards. You did see that case up in Orleans County where they had a dozen EBT cards that was involved in a drug case, and they were trading benefits EBT cards for drugs. Just wondering about the controls.
So we do have a robust fraud unit, and so when there are instances of where we feel that maybe fraud has been reported, and I think that in particular, we outreach to just understand how do we report that it was actually very few EBT cards. I think there was personal credit cards and debit cards that were also in that mix, so it wasn't just EBT cards. But we do have mechanisms in place to be able to look into if someone is improperly using EBT cards.
So how frequently do you check on those or require them to provide information that justifies their being in the program?
So that's the annual, like we do a full review of people's cases, and then every 6 months we do, so kind of like a mid-year, we check in to make sure nothing has changed. Do they have, different sources of income, are they still living where, they get reported, et cetera.
Dave?
Was the eligibility at the federal level changed whereby in determining eligibility, whether I was financially eligible, I think a person could deduct some of their utility bills to make them eligible? Did that change?
Want to check in. with the
Just
director
curious.
just to
Oh,
make
okay.
sure.
Yeah, if you could, I just
Yes.
wondered if that would have a downward pressure. And then is it the ABOD, the able-bodied and working conditions, those are still in place?
Those are, and that did change under HR 1, so that there are more, some of the exemptions were removed. In particular, like the homeless exemption. People do have to now engage in either work or volunteer work.
Even if they're homeless?
Correct.
Yes, and so there's a report that maybe we should put on our website that was submitted to Human Services, not to Appropriations, September 15. Right, so this is what I'm talking about by when Chris Winters was the commissioner. And so we can put that on our website, but one of the things they said is they removed work requirement exemptions from 3 populations. So I'm reading from the report right now. Individuals experiencing homelessness. At the time, it was about 1,603 Vermonters. Again, I don't know what the number is now, but that was that. And then there were 12 or fewer veterans who were also now had to do work requirements, and then young adults who have aged out of foster care. And again, there were fewer than 12 at the time. So that was from the report.
And if I may, I was just trying to find out if the work requirement conditions are putting additional pressures on our staff. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so I think in moments in time, so this fall, we had outreach to all those households to ensure that they knew that this was gonna be something that was happening. Then Vermont, we just happened to be fortunate in our 3-year clock reset. So everyone gets 3 months where they don't have to meet their work requirement because of the federal government shutdown of the house. We actually got an additional month. And so actually at the end of this month will be when we would see those individuals that would need to be meeting their work requirement. And so we have a little bit of an increase because we're going to outreach to all those households. Again, we're also looking at using the same technology we did during the shutdown, where we might send some logo text into these households, asking them to contact us, so we can make sure that they know different options.
And one final question, Madam Chair, then I'm trying to find out if those kind of pressures could inflate our error rate, which you indicated in part is determined by timeliness. So if staff are, because they're required to be engaged in the work requirement, might have less time to do the eligibility processing. Are we concerned about that, or is that manageable?
I would say at this time, it feels manageable. We're in a pretty good spot, just with, we made some changes and I've been able to keep up with, processing these, cases, very timely. So I think we're okay, but now, but I appreciate your asking.
Thank you.
Okay. I've just sent Autumn that report to Teresa.
I'm not sure where you're going next, Madam Chair, but when there's an opportunity, I'd like to ask about carry forward funds.
Yes, so am I. Yeah, there's a great document that we got last week, I think, when the whole central office and all of you were here, that I actually looked at this morning, so, yes. Was it SNAP related or just in general?
It's GA, really.
Okay, well, yeah. Remind me when we get to GA. So I think we've now talked about SNAP.
Yes, and so jumping down, so the only other items that would flag, I think you're, jumping past some small stuff in there. We get to the 211 hour reduction. We're reducing the hours of we're proposing to reduce the hours of operation for the 211 emergency housing call center from 24/7 to 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m., we're not able to actually place people at hotels or other shelter options. And so it is not feeling like the best prioritization of our general fund dollars or global commitment dollars. So that is our proposal for 211.
Any questions on that?
And then the last item on here, and I guess I would defer to you on how you want to do this. Do we want to talk through the housing initiative items as they come up through the ups/downs, or do we want to go and talk through the whole housing?
I want to hear about the whole program, and then we can see how the bits and pieces we'll, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll skip that and we'll get to that.
Okay, great.
So then we move on to Family Services Division, which is B317. Ending through where things matter. So we have another part of the TANF revenue realignment that we talked about earlier here. We have revenue true up, which is just moving, aligning our earnings to how we actually earned funding last year. So we were earning more global commitment and personal services and less in operating. So we're just doing some cleanup moves there. We have our social worker class action annualization. So we had a class action for all of our social workers last year that went up a pay grade, and so that is causing some budget pressures.
So is that salary increase or is that legal stuff?
That's salary. That's salaries.
Okay, so based on RFRs?
It was a class action, so all of them went up. It wasn't individual RFRs. And then skipping past the ISFs. So we have the private non-medical institution PNMI inflation factor. That is the inflation that's adjustments that are provided to our PNMI providers to align with the impacts of inflation. Annually, it's calculated by DIVA. And so that is our adjustment for those. We have some a net neutral move just to correct and it was put in the wrong approach last year. And then we have our transportation contract pressures. We've talked about this in BAA. I don't know if you want to go into it again, but it's the same.
Is this the non-medical, non-emergency medical transport?
So this is for our our children in our custody.
Oh, transportation.
Different.
Okay.
And those costs just keep going up. And we don't really have that many providers that we contract with. We have some caseload adjustments. We have our substitute care caseload and utilization. And as we touched on in the PowerPoint, that's been trending downwards over time. And there are fewer children in our custody. And then we have our subsidized adoption caseload has been trending upward, which represents more children in permanent placements.
I just have a quick clarifying question. If in fact the numbers of youth in custody is going down, why are transportation costs going up?
The cost per transportation is increasing significantly. That's
How many youth are in custody right now? I'm forgetting the.
Line there.
A little over 800.
All right, I see them, Mike.
Oh, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you. About the transportation costs, is part of that services that Easter Seals provides?
Erica is on.
Hi, yes, that is part of the service that Easter Seals provides, but not all of it. As a matter of fact, sometimes our workers are doing transportation as well as the transportation providers that we've contracted with. And this is primarily to get children to school or to their appointments.
And it's gone up by $1 million because there are fewer organizations doing the transportation, so they're just charging us a lot, or are they going further to take kids to school, or what's happening?
It's the former. It's generally there are fewer providers, and we are in a position where they're able to charge more than they've charged in the past. But we are also doing a lot of transportation of youth because we do want youth, if they are being placed outside of their home area, they can still go to school. We want them to have that normalcy. So we are transporting kids to school back in their home area and other things like that.
Thank you. Dave, did you have more other questions?
Yes, I wanted to get a sense if you could tell us later, if you don't know, how many calls are coming in annually to the abuse and neglect hotline?
I can
And-
find that out and I'll get back to you. Right away.
Thank you. I'm interested to know if it's increasing or staying flat. And if it's increasing, but yet the number of children coming into custody is decreasing, what your reflection and comment on that would be? I'm wondering what % of abuse calls turn into actual action of removing children. Thank you.
Thank you. Will do.
Okay, so after we get through the caseload adjustments, we get to some of the reductions in our budgets. So the first line item is the post-permanence program. We're proposing a 25% reduction, and this is a reduction in funding to support services provided to families after an adoption has been finalized. This would reduce the eligible population to only those families whose adoption was facilitated by DCF. And so this would represent a loss of services to families who adopted a child through an organization outside of DCF.
Outside of DCF. So,
Decrease the funding for,
pardon?
decrease the funding for the ones that were outside of DC.
And the thinking, is that just a reduction because times are hard, or is there a policy behind that?
We had to come up with
Big
reductions.
percent.
Mhm.
Just a quick question about, how does that affect something, an organization like Lund?
So Lund is one of the entities that provides these services, so it would be a reduction in funding for NFI, Lund, and Easter Seals.
200,000, right? Am I reading that right?
1,000 across all.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next item is the Nurturing Parent Program. We're proposing a 50% reduction to this program, and this reduces the program that provides parenting classes to eligible households. And it's administered by Prevent Child Abuse Vermont.
And what was your thinking behind reducing that one?
I think that, again, it's one of those things where we were prioritizing, health and life sustaining safety first in and then looking at places where we had scalable programs where we could provide services that didn't necessarily have to cut the whole thing. And just finding places where we thought that we had no legal mandate to provide it from the federal government. And yeah, those are some of the criteria that we used.
Okay, I have two questions. Mike first and then Dave.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm hoping this is something the committee could look at. We've seen numbers going down, and I believe the work of this group is partly responsible for those numbers going down. And I would hope that we're not assuming numbers are going to continue to go down if we stop the services that help it to go down there. So I'm just hoping we can put that in the parking lot and revisit this when we go through the budget here.
Dave and then Wayne.
That was my question. Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Go ahead, Wayne.
So on the flip side of that, I see estimates of our children in school going from 79,000 now to someplace in the mid-60s, so in the future. So if that's the case, then is there in the pipeline fewer kids coming up through? Could that also be impacting any of this?
Is what it is for right now, but who knows what it's going to be down the road with fewer students.
And in 10 years, they're projecting 65,000 instead of 79,000. That was a number I heard. So that's a big number.
Yeah,
And if
in
that's-
10 years,
If that's
yeah.
working its way through the pipeline now.
Lots of changes. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I think the next one is the elimination of the post-adoption consortium program. And this is a program that's really underutilized in our budget. We only spent $2,000 of the 200,000 last year. So, just in trying to make these hard decisions about what we had to, it felt like an opportunity that wouldn't result in large impacts on Vermonters receiving services.
You have a big cut.
And then we have the Families First Prevention Services Act, or FFPSA. We have two lines there. And this is the elimination of funding for aftercare services for youth exiting state custody, which was identified as necessary to implement the FFPSA. This is necessary for us to be able to draw in 4E revenue beyond the first 14 days of a child's stay in a group home, or residential placement. However, it's not the only thing that's preventing us from drawing in that money. The main thing preventing us from being able to draw in that 4E revenue is the lack of a CCWIS system, which we're working on procuring and building. And
So the
so
last how many years?
we've only really been working on it for the last 2 years, but yes, it is a system. We have an existing system called SSMIS that is, really antiquated. And so we are working on procuring the new CCWIS system, but we never actually implemented these last two items, the aftercare or the prevention services. We got the funding for them, but it was never a program that actually we started implementing. And so given that we can't draw in the revenue anyways, even with these programs, and nobody's receiving services from them yet, it just felt like it was an opportunity to, again, realize some savings in a really hard budget discussion without having people lose services.
Does this free up some global commitment for other things?
Yes, in so much as it falls to the bottom line for other places, yeah.
related to CWIS, so we heard testimony a week ago that it was gonna be roughly a $30 million plus project. And that the state didn't want to do it sort of module by module. So what I'm understanding is there's 7.5 million in state funds, and that matched is about 15 million. So I'm just trying to figure out why there isn't additional funding in here for CWIS implementation, or not implementation, development still.
So I guess when we were building the budget, we didn't yet have best and final offers from the CCWIS procurement process. And the range that we got in the offers was quite large in the bids that we got from providers. It was quite a significant range. And we've been able to narrow that down through the procurement process. I think we're in a better place now as we sit here to understand what the total cost is going to be in the long term. But at the time when we were building it, we weren't sure if 14 million might be enough or not. And so I think it's enough to get us through the first year, and then when we have a final number, we'll be able to present a more accurate ask in the future.
So ADS presented that they pretty much know that it's gonna be more than what we have now and closer to the range of 30 million, so roughly double what we have now. So I'm just pointing that out for the committee in terms of what we've gotten in terms of testimony from ADS.
And so does that mean we're gonna see a budget adjustment for that?
I mean,
Or you can try to get something through before we get out of here in May?
I don't think I know the answer to how, we don't have a selected bidder yet either. I think that is I think we're still in the procurement process. So we have to really wait and see how that plays out. So that brings us to the Child Development Division. Let's skip through all the boring stuff again. Again, we have a revenue realignment between personal services and operating, just to reflect where funding is, or where revenue is actually being earned. We have a $2.5 million downward adjustment to the childcare revenue special fund in our budget. This is resulting because the whole amount of the projected revenue was put into our budget last year, with a mistake being that we needed to put 2.5 million in the tax department. So we needed to account for, if 2.5 million of the special childcare special fund is going to the tax department to administer that special fund, we needed to take it out of our budget. Then the other big down in the special fund is for the childcare special fund shortfall. And so that 6.2 million is a result of, as we said earlier, the reduced projections by the economists, the consensus projections.
So above the first grant, you have revenue realignment grants, and it's 698 from general fund and not special fund.
So the revenue realignment is as a result of where we're earning our revenue. So the 698 down is from federal. So we're earning less revenue in grants in CDD and more in personal services. So there's a line above it in personal services where you'll see it's up. And so we're just.
Okay, so they're related to each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after this childcare special fund shortfall, we have some more cuts that we're proposing. The first one is the Strengthening Families program cut. And this is the elimination of a grant program for family supports and childcare programs. It's targeted to sunset as the funds weren't equitably distributed in the past, and additional funds are available via Act 76 for investments. And then we have $100,000 reduction for childcare capacity grants. And this reduction is to support startup and expansion costs. If 900,000 remains available. And with the PDG, the preschool development block grant or preschool development grant for 3-5 funding that we received this year, we also think we can subsidize some of this with that as well.
So this is for childcare facilities. So, in the past, there's been a significant annual turnover in the number of those. Is that continuing? I know at one point, when I was 5 years ago, when I was economic development, it was 50% per year.
It's
at that
completely
time.
changed with the childcare bill.
What's that?
It's completely changed with the childcare bill. We had more openings than closings last year for the first time in years.
So my question is, I mean, with these grants, they're getting grants for the facilities when they go in. So I'm questioning, what, how much are we bleeding from those grants when people go out of business here? You do get grants to fix up their places. So can we ever assess that?
If they got a grant to fix up their place and then went out of business, Janet just came on.
Good timing,
It's a mirror.
Zoom.
Because if it's 50% a year, 35% or 25% a year, over a period of 4 or 5 years, that could amount to a lot of money.
Go ahead, Janet.
Okay, so hi there, Janet McLaughlin. I'm DCF Deputy Commissioner in charge of the Child Development Division. And there is turnover in childcare businesses. For family childcare homes, it sort of averages between 5 and 10% a year over the last I think we looked at this data recently, it was like over the last 7 years or so. So it's really a 5 to 10% on this real personal business for family childcare homes. In terms of centers, the closure rate is much, much lower than that. So yes, staff turnover, but the rates are, like I said, closer to sort of this 5 or 10%, and that's just in the family childcare side of it. And when we do make the grants for startup, we are working with a nonprofit partner that supports us in that, First Children's Finance, and they're providing a lot of business technical assistance to go along with the grant fund. So they're working with them on their business plan, helping them think through, how are they setting up their tax structure, and helping them develop their tuition structure, their enrollment plans. So we're trying to wrap around to make sure those investments that we're making in capacity can stand the test of time.
So that's Building Bright Futures.
No, it's an organization called First Children's Finance. They're a national nonprofit, and they started, but they have a Vermont-specific office with people that have run childcare programs in Vermont, and they started about 2 years ago.
So how does Building Bright Futures fit into this?
Well, Building Bright Futures is another nonprofit in Vermont, and they are our state early childhood advisory council. They're named in statute to sort of advise and monitor and facilitate the systems over the early childhood systems overall. So that includes like early childhood education, but it also includes early childhood mental health, looking at physical health, looking at housing, sort of all issues related to early childhood in the state. So it's just they're totally different functions.
Right, the big picture. So the Families Foundation, whatever you call the other one, reminds me of the Small Business Development Center, providing technical business assistance specifically for this industry.
Yes.
So we aren't just saying, here's some money, good luck in the future. We're actually helping them out.
So
Building Bright Futures doesn't provide any grants to
Right.
providers, but they are named in Act 76 to evaluate the implementation of Act 76.
So do you actually, count the number of days that number of children per day in each one of these facilities? Are you keeping track of that? Is there any requirement for tracking that so that we get an assessment of what the cost is per day of a child being housed, cared for?
So we can answer that question a couple of ways, but one is I mean, there's 1,000 separate childcare programs in the state. And so, no, we don't know we don't keep enrollment require that they report attendance for every single child that attends those programs. But for those children who do benefit from childcare financial assistance, yes, we do get attendance on those children. So we know that they have been attending when they've been absent. And we do regular audits, and both in person and, using the attendance records and looking for patterns and things like that. And we do that every single pay period for childcare financial assistance, and we're getting out in person to childcare programs on a regular basis. So in terms of, and then we also have done some analysis on sort of a cost of care model for a variety of different childcare programs to try to assess viability and sustainability of the program based on the ages of the children you've enrolled, what percentage of them are on childcare financial assistance, looking at, well, how does that work with wages that where they currently are? How does it work with wages when they might be closer to what some more aligned perhaps with what's offered in public schools? So there's a lot of numbers and analysis out there. So, but I do think we can feel really confident that there's more kids attending care and more kids are certainly getting benefiting from the childcare financial assistance program.
Thanks.
This one has been very well there's a lot of oversight. I mean, Marty, go ahead.
I just like clarification, is this $100,000 reduction in the capacity grants the whole program, or is there money left in the grant program?
There's $900,000 remaining after the $100,000 reduction.
Did you use the whole million or whatever it was last year? Was it completely used, or is there any carry forward on that?
We didn't have carry forward in CDD last year, but that's not to say that we spent every dollar of that line item, as we close on this department. So I can get back to you on.
Let us know how much was actually spent.
We did spend
Oh,
it.
did you?
We got that last year.
Okay, thanks.
So the next line item is the emergency financial relief utilization cut. So this is the reduction of funding to support emergency needs for childcare providers at risk of closure. And the remaining budget is aligned with what was actually dispersed in state fiscal year 25. So this is a reduction in the amount that we're budgeting to align with how much was actually requested last year.
So how much is left?
156,000. And so then the next line is another $100,000 reduction, and this is a reduction for childcare eligibility agreement efficiencies. We have 12 community childcare support agencies, or CCCSAs, that have been funded based on that do our eligibility determinations for us, and we are reducing this because we have funding that hasn't been drawn down in the past couple of years. 2.5 million remains. And then the final line item is the Children's Trust Fund program cut. And this is the elimination of a contribution to CTF's annual grant-making program for a variety of child-serving programs. Federal funds have not been available to support this for several years now, and then this removes the spending authority for the federal line as well as the general fund. And so that's CDD.
Yes, Dave.
I apologize, you covered this, but I'm just digesting here, the strengthening families. Did I hear you say, is that the whole program? Pardon?
Yes, so the Strengthening Families program is proposed for elimination.
It eliminates the whole thing.
Yes.
That was the the policy foundation of our child development program, was it not? And the four tenants, the
Janet,
immediate part.
Say something.
Janet's gonna answer. Yeah.
She's on this.
Go ahead, Janet.
So, yeah, so this is so strengthening families, yes, is a really important framework related to child well-being and child protection from abuse. We still have the tenets of the strengthening families framework embedded into the work we do at the Child Development Division. It's even more strongly component of the STARS quality recognition and improvement system. So we have other ways that we are supporting programs, childcare programs, to be able to embed these practices within their programs. This is what this is doing is eliminating a program that gave grants to about 30 organizations. So it didn't give grants to the full continuum, and so that's
Is
where we
it
ended.
just to understand, are you suggesting that the STARS program will fulfill most of this work throughout the continuum?
I am suggesting, yes, that the STARS program will be a way to support widespread adoption of the strengthening families practices across across many more childcare programs, and that it's embedded into the trainings that are offered via our different partners at Northern Lights, through the coaching that we have offered through the Sparks program, and then it's also embedded into the STARS program. So it's a different approach, trying to get rather than going deep with a smaller number of programs, the approach is to go broad with more programs, knowing that those programs have more resources now that Act 76 is in place.
And if just one more, if I may, it used to be there were 5 stars, but now I'm told everybody gets the equivalent of 5 stars.
No. So
No.
there still are 5 stars. Everybody comes in at 1 star with licensing. When you become licensed, you're at 1 star. And then there's 4 additional levels beyond that. I think the confusion is that with Act 76, we eliminated tiered reimbursement based on your stars level.
Right.
So
Right.
That's what happened. So we made the base level, the 5-star rate from that time became the new base rate. It's changed since then, but that was the line of thinking that got people into thinking that everybody's 5 stars, and it's not that. We just changed the rates.
The reimbursement from the 5 stars was built in. So do we still designate, I might be a 3-star and John's got a 4-star, but could you, not today, but could you please send us the distribution of where childcare programs fall on the stars? 30% or a 2-star, 40% or a 4, et cetera, and be great to see that over time. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to share that. And we do provide incentive dollars for programs that are achieving higher stars level. It's just not directly through the Child Care Financial Assistance reimbursement rate anymore. So they do get incented.
Yep. I think that conversation was a good example of what we did across the agency. We looked into the departments, were there redundancies, could we increase efficiencies? And then each director was working with their team to look at the programs that they have. Is there evidence to show that it's working? Are there other programs that fill the need? So that just is a great example of it.
Good. Glad to hear it. So let's go quickly through the Office of Child Support, because I think we really want to hear about your housing thing. You don't have.
I don't think there's much to talk about in OCS.
No, it looked like there was just a judiciary cooperative agreement reduction.
Yeah, so that's just a reduction in the GF that we provide to the judiciary to offset their non-4D eligible costs. Part of that is for work that they do on the administrative side of that, and we've been doing more of that work, so it's just a reduction to offset our needs there. AABD, we have an increase to the amount that we are needing to cover the administrative costs of this program. We pay the feds a flat rate per payment to administer these payments on our behalf, and they raise the rates every year. So this is just an increase in the amount that we have to pay for all of our ABD payments to go out. And then the line below that is a benefit adjustment, a benefit caseload adjustment. So as the chart showed, we have been seeing a decline in the number of ABD households receiving ABD benefits. And so this is just aligned with that, reducing caseload.
Great, thank you.
Which brings us to GA. And so in GA, you'll see the first one is a down in our Social Security Specialist Agreement cut. So we're eliminating the agreement that provides support to GA eligible households in applying for Social Security benefits. We've done analysis of data and it did not demonstrate that there was a substantial increase in the applications for an approval by SSA as a result of this agreement. So that's why.
So that's an agreement with Social Security directly.
No, it's an agreement with a provider.
And just my association of business industry. In favor.
Yes, favor, okay.
Support people as they apply for SFA, so we didn't see the connection, the results.
Okay.
The next line item is an increase to our support services budget in GA to align with the different components of support services. So we're actually seeing a reduction in the dental costs, which is why you see it down in the GC, but then we have some increases in the other components, which are burial, abortions, and physicians. And then we have our personal needs and incidentals, which is another down, and this is a reduction based on prior year trends for groceries, room and board, home rent, that type of thing. We know that more analysis needs to be done on this program to understand the crossover between populations and various housing programs and how they impact the PNI utilization. And we look forward to doing that as we move forward with the new version of the housing initiative. And then the last item in GA is part of the housing initiative. It's a big down, but that's because we have ups in other places in the budget. But the housing initiative that DCF has put forth as part of the governor's recommended budget prioritizes shelter funding and expansion. And so DCF is proposing converting the base funding for the hotel motel program in state fiscal year 27 into one-time funding, which allows additional base funding to be invested in other components of the housing system. And this retains limited funding for contracted hotel motel rooms in ESD's base budget.
So where do we find like this whole housing initiative thing? Because it's probably not in the ups and downs. I mean, it's in pieces, but we want to like talk about it as a
Okay, so
thing.
126.
Page 126. Maybe we should go to that. I'm trying to be aware of the time. And I know we have till 3, but this is kind of the big one.
But that's in a different handout, correct?
It's in a 175 page budget book and annual report. And Teresa said it's on page 126. I just found it. There it is.
Can I just ask a quick question, before we jump into that? So what does this remaining $3 million pay for?
it's support services, the agreements, several different various agreements that we administer through the GA budget. And it's our PNI program. And other things in GA that I'm thinking of right now that remain there after you take out the housing program. No, these things are admin.
Yes, it's time for me to ask my.
Sure. Yes, and I can just let my committee know that last week when central office and everybody else came in. Still, I think, we got a great series of spreadsheets that included carry forward. I don't know how I ended up with this, but I had it. carry forward, reversion, single audit findings, and the cost to increase community providers rate by 1%. So it's a delightful combination of everything. So carry forward is in that one.
I don't have that, Madam Chair, but in the Sandy.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
They have
Probably
some
the same
specific things. So my question specifically is, it looks like there's $11.1 million carried forward from FY 25 in unspent CA emergency housing. And then it looks like there's gonna be at least around $6 million in FY 26. And I'm just wondering if that roughly 17 to 18 million dollars is included as part of this governor's housing.
Yes, so those are both one-time appropriations. Well, so the
Right,
When
there's
you're
some
talking about the
one-time
11,
stuff in this
yeah.
governor housing initiative as well.
Yeah, and so I think, I don't know, if Lily can speak more to exactly what we're utilizing that for. I can definitely get back to you. But there are plans to utilize, the remaining balances, to support our initiative as well as ongoing projects that are just, taking a little while to materialize and be built for.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, I did ask, for a breakout of FY 25, 26, and then proposed 27 of appropriated, expended, and then, proposed, so that we could see it more clearly, to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples when we're looking at what the initiative actually contains.
Yeah, then we almost have that done for you.
Okay.
We're working on that today.
That'd probably be good for us to have too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if any of you have it online, but if you click this little icon up here, then it pulls up all the headings, so you can kind of skip around if you don't have to, so you don't have to scroll through everything. And then you can click on the governor's recommended budget. And then within that, there's subcategories, so then you can go to the governor's housing initiative and just, I don't know, you probably all already know this, but I just didn't. Yeah.
I'm the Sojourner Director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, and so on the bottom of page 135, under shelter things, startup investments, we reference the $6 million that we're putting forward, but then talk about utilizing at least $5 million to allow for. This is primarily, again, those more intensive startup costs of building acquisition, significant renovations. And so that's where that is incorporated into the plan.
So I feel like we're starting in the middle, and I would like to go back and tell us what the housing initiative is.
Right.
Give us the big picture of what you're talking about here.
Philosophy.
Yeah.
Philosophy, the whole bit.
I just want to-
It's okay, I understand. I'm just gonna now pull us back and let's go to the 30,000 feet and tell us what we're talking about. Who's in charge of this?
We're arguing over it right now. We both want to do it.
Someone's in charge of
Yes,
this.
recognizing that Vermont is a shelter first state, we want to invest in shelters moving forward. So do you,
Can I stop there for a second?
Yeah.
I keep hearing you all say we're a shelter first state, as opposed to what?
It's
first.
And when did that happen? We were not ever housing, I thought we were housing first.
No.
We've never been housing first?
Not in statute.
No,
Okay.
this program.
Okay,
I think as it relates to general assistance,
Right.
emergency housing and use of hotels, so not, housing first is a specific.
it's about something else.
Philosophy and
Yeah.
intervention, that I think how we use the other.
Okay, so a shelter first state means that we try to find shelter for people of different kinds of shelter.
Yeah, rather than a hotel room, really, we're looking for a shelter where they're gonna get programming, there are services available, they're not just staying in a room, they have access to services, and they're moving toward housing.
Okay, so it includes wraparound services with the goal of moving to housing.
So, do you want me to-
Yeah, I can't see, I can't
Okay.
see that.
So this year, as part of the governor's recommended budget, DCF is proposing a new housing initiative designed to address the housing crisis in Vermont in a more nuanced way, utilizing data on what works best to support households throughout the continuum of housing needs and target populations most adversely impacted by the housing crisis individually rather than in a one-size-fits-all approach. As part of this initiative, AHS proposes investing more heavily in shelter and service options for targeted populations in the long term, with state fiscal year 27 and state fiscal year 28 as transition years. Hotels and motels will play a key role during the transition and may be utilized in the future, but in a safer and more targeted way. Understanding that expansion of shelter capacity takes time, DCF does not propose eliminating the hotel motel program in state fiscal year 27, but rather proposes utilizing one-time appropriations as the state transitions to a shelter-focused approach to housing supports. The sections below outline the components of the initiatives. All the funding has been allocated to DCF or is proposed to be allocated to DCF. But DCF has worked closely with AHS, Dale, DMH, and BDH on developing this proposal and plans to continue working closely on administering the funds with our partners across the agency.
Okay, yes.
So that's kind of a statement of intention. And then can you get it? I have really hard time getting my arms around, like, how many shelters, how many beds, eligibility, any changes in eligibility, and how does that then compare to what we're doing right now in terms of people?
And different kinds of sheltering options is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think some of those things we're still talking about. We are prioritizing Vermonters. So we want Vermonters to receive the services, to have access. So we are suggesting that there are residency requirements for folks to access the programming. As far as the number of shelters, I would ask Lily to,
I'm sorry, how does one prove residency if you're homeless?
attestations from providers in the community.
Go ahead.
I know that's a big topic. We've run it constantly on how you define residency and how you can legally and constitutionally define residency.
Mhm.
So it's a very thorny issue. It's.
And we also want to support people if they're going to make Vermont their homes. So how do you do that? So we're still figuring out some of those things.
Right, and every state in the country thinks that all the homeless people come from another state, right? And it's just not true. That doesn't work that way. So we need to dispel that myth.
Can I just want to make sure that I'm understanding, when you say you're still talking about the specifics, are you still talking about the number of people that the system can accommodate? And the different, like numbers of different types of shelters? Or is it that you're still debating eligibility requirements? Or is it both?
Well, we've been exploring these. We've been working on this since I started and before I started. So I only know from when I started what we've been working on, but we've been talking about eligibility criteria. What should it look like? How could we move people in different directions within the system? What services are available across the departments, across the agency? What do our community partners offer? Where are there gaps in care? Where should we invest to make sure that medically vulnerable folks have shelter? So we work with Dale, and Dale says, oh, this might work, and this is what we think it would cost, and maybe 2 programs, one in the north, one in the south. So exploring all of the things we identify as being gaps. One thing that we have to make sure that we remember is there's not just this number. There's not a number of people that we need to serve and make sure there's a bed for, because it fluctuates. And what we hope is when they receive the services that are available through other departments within the agency, there'll be a reduction in the homeless population.
I want to be really clear. I don't minimize the difficulty of your job and this particular challenge. And yet I've been hearing for 5 years that the departments are going to be working together and that services will be provided. And every year it is a new commitment. And I guess I should let you talk, but I think that my expectation would be that at this point, given this problem, you come to us with a really concrete proposal, because the Human Services Committee did last year. And it was rejected. So at any rate, I know that, I mean, this is my budget category, and I know that there are many members of this committee who have grappled with this for quite a while now. And so we'll be working with Human Services to better understand the plan. And I'm hopeful that it is that people's lives are on the line. And what I am hearing, as I've been listening in on other testimony, is that the eligibility requirements will change pretty significantly. And that will affect thousands of people who are currently unhoused. Maybe they're, and so so I think as specific as you can get, it will be very helpful to me and probably many people in the body, so.
Okay, so you did.
Speech, it's just,
You did hear some of the presentation, and I hope that you saw that there was cross department work. That the agency, we have been working with our partners in Dale, DMH, DOC, VDH. We have been working with them, assessing what is available right now, seeing where there's overlap, seeing if there needs to be increases. So what we identified was in the shelters, there needs to be increases in mental health services. DMH proposes 10 hours a week through designated agencies. I spoke briefly to the potential shelter for medically vulnerable folks in the north and south of the state. There's been an increase in beds for people with substance use disorder in Virgins. There's also an assessment through VDH where they looked at the services that the preferred providers are obligated to provide and making sure that they're doing that in the shelters. So again, meeting people where they are. What am I missing?
A resource might be the presentation that we provided to House Human Services last Wednesday.
Yes.
As well, which outlines. And then each department shares.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this and there's a lot of information here, but it's not necessarily giving me the information I want, other than some of the numbers. But if we take the medically vulnerable, you've got $2.6 million. What is that going for? How many people are going to be served? What are the eligibility requirements? I mean, I could see a spreadsheet person, a chart or spreadsheet that says for each of these, here's the cost, here's the number of people that will be served, here are the eligibility requirements, and there may be other columns that I can't think of. But that would be really helpful to just see then we can see how many people we're talking about. all of that, John?
I think would be helpful for me too, is to understand what that looks like.
Yeah.
State regionally,
Right,
because it's different.
right. And then we see the total dollars that are being spent.
4,000 people I represent, but how many, people might we need to serve there?
Right,
Or other places. So
Right.
have just a little more breakdown, and that may be, and it doesn't need to be like exact to the person here, but the best forecasting you can do for that based on our past services.
and how much we're really talking about, because I see shelter planning and startup investments for 6 million, but we have carry forward of 11 million, and we have other, so it feels like it needs to be all brought together in a chart somehow.
What's paying for what?
Wait.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I would think-
It's a little bit harder to
Yeah.
focusing on shelters as opposed to hotel rooms, because hotel rooms, it's like $80 a night, times 6 number of nights equals this many.
You got to the 6 million somehow.
Yeah, and so I think but a lot of it is, to some extent, like, this is our goal, but, just because we have a goal of 90 beds or something, whatever, I'm making that number up, doesn't mean necessarily that when we go out for procurement and secure shelter capacity, it will be 90 beds. So I think that's it's slightly different when you.
Yeah, although why would we give you 6 million if you can't even tell us what it's gonna be used for? Procurement could be, because I'm not gonna, because if it's $6 million and you get 30 beds, that's probably not okay. So I think we need a little bit more
And I'm
information.
with John on the, if not by county, it could be like Northwest,
It makes the most sense, yeah.
bigger.
Yeah,
bigger
and I
chunks.
see you have for medically vulnerable, you have north and south, so that's at least something, but. And I like the notion of, families have certain needs that are different from those who are medically vulnerable, that are different from those who are in recovery. And that makes sense to me, so I appreciate all that thinking, and I just feel like we need a little bit more to hang all this money on.
And if you haven't done this, then this should be a major part of your planning process.
So we have met with providers. We have what they suggest are percentages of folks that come in and meet these categories. And so we try to figure, okay, what does that mean across the state? And there has been some data analysis. What I can say is it was 2 hours that we met and we gave an overview to HHS.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's what you need. I think we can hone it in. I'm hearing the questions that you're asking, and if you get a smaller group to come and not an overview of everything that's already,
Right.
but the breakdown of the cost. I mean, I can tell you that it's for additional shelter capacity, but I'm hearing you want to know, okay, what does that mean?
Right,
How many?
exactly.
Okay.
Is it 3 or 300? Is it, or something, that we like the data? And Teresa, and I think Dave has a question too. Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, Madam Chair, House Human Services is going to get more detail later this week. We have the department scheduled for testimony specifically to review. We've only had sort of the broad overview, and then we had what each department in AHS, as the commissioner said, is doing currently. And so we're going to be digging deeper into this later, and welcome any member of appropriations to that.
And I was there last week, so.
Yeah, and I
It's not like I
meant,
have
try to
heard
read it, right, but I just think having it laid out in a chart somehow that we think differently. That's helpful for us to have all that detail.
Yeah, I think that the chart that they're preparing with the expenditures and the appropriations, that definitely helps make sure that.
That would be really helpful to have. Dave, go ahead.
Just a couple of things. Is there a proposal on the table to change the eligibility for emergency housing for the disabled?
I'm trying to scroll down, but I can't.
It's okay. Been there, done that.
Can you repeat the question, Dave?
Is there a proposal to change the definition of who is disabled for emergency housing?
Not changing, refining it, making sure that it's very clear.
Can you give me an example?
I would ask the folks at Dale to do that.
Oh, okay. Because I know now, and when looking at the data,
Mhm.
that DCF provides on their webpage periodically, monthly, whatever. You know, you can see this is how many are in SSI, this is how many are in SSDI, this is how many, I think it's a voc rehab eligibility. And pretty much figure, well, those must be disabled folks. And I didn't know if we were tightening that in some way, so I should speak to the Dale
That's Dale.
staff
Yeah,
about whether
that's
they
Dale.
have. Yeah. And then I want to just shift a little bit, when we say shelter first, and I'm an advocate of shelters, however, I'm interested in the cost benefit analysis of which makes more sense. I think we have 600 plus beds in shelters now. I could be off a little bit, but the cost to build a shelter, 20 bed, a 30 bed, a 10 bed, and to sprinkle that construction around the state, and then to staff it with services sufficient to address the wraparound needs that people have. Is it less costly and equally effective to do something like using vacant hotel space or buying marginally profitable motels throughout the state and bringing the services to the motel that's already built? And imagine the AHS field director, I do not know how many exist anymore, but every Monday morning, looking at the list of the people that are there and saying, community action, mental health, parent-child center, who's the case manager for Dave Iacoboni? And visits being arranged and saying, okay, Dave, have you made it in to apply for your, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's is that model just ineffective, obsolete? Is it cost effective? Are you looking at different models, or is it just, boy, we're going to somehow construct shelters and hopefully place them in the right place?
We would like to answer.
Thanks. I think that in addition to the shelter investments that we're making, there are also other investments. Because ideally, and I think to the point made earlier, we don't want to walk away saying, oh, Vermont just has a plethora of shelter beds and that's sort of your final destination, right? Like, we want people's final destination to be their apartment, to be a skilled nursing facility that meets their needs. We want it to be someplace that is not a shelter. And so I think that's where some of the service discussions that we've had to help get people to those destinations that best meet their needs, that's an important investment that we've highlighted. And then also there's an investment for rental assistance, knowing that again, for many people, it's this 3 legs of the stool analogy where you have rental assistance, the unit, and the services. So again, knowing that for folks and for us, continuing to prioritize like families with children, people with complex health needs, how can we get them the rental assistance so that when they are in services like family supported housing, they can go out and get into these units that we're working with our colleagues at Department of Housing and Community Development and others to bring online, because while those units meet definition of affordability for folks who may be on reach out or who may be on SSI, they need some sort of rental assistance to get into those. So I think that's where it's not just a shelter plan, and we have multiple different investments that are going to get to that capacity. It's not just shelters, right? It's trying to move people beyond shelter, have shelters serve as that safety net so that homelessness can be free, ideally not recurring for a short duration of time, but that we're investing in other services and supports that are going to help people maintain permanent housing.
And who do you imagine running all this? Is it a community nonprofit doing an RFP? Is it the state?
For the
Making all
assistance or?
making all those decisions and operating the different facets of what you described. Is there someone who's on first?
So I think we can leverage a lot of the information that's happening now in communities through things like the coordinated entry assessment process, families and individuals if they need a higher level of care and coordination, could be referred to team-based care with AHS field services. But that is a way to kind of do the process and the orientation. In terms of some of the details, most recently, for instance, we've had a statewide voucher program for families with minor children that CBOEO was the recipient of those funds. I think there's different ways in terms of like the funding mechanics. And then again, making sure that, families are kind of being connected through things like coordinated entry. Right now, we leverage coordinated entry for any referrals to family supportive housing. We leverage it for permanent support housing assistance to, again, make sure we know, and that allows us to make those choices around urgency, for instance. So with family supportive housing, we look at factors such as children under the age of 6. We were talking about some of the strengthening family stuff earlier with Janet. So kids under the age of 6, families involved with child welfare, duration of homelessness, and that helps us sort of make sure we're getting to those families with the most need first for those families for housing services.
Thank
So those are things we can do.
We also envision funding options or opportunities for specific regions to apply for funding for what they need in that region. And it would encourage them to work together to be collaborative in their application.
Mhm.
And then give them the autonomy to do what they need in their region.
I'm seeing three people looking at me. Do you want to say something, Dave?
No,
Okay.
Yeah, you know.
All right.
So
Are there more questions? Yeah, keep going.
did you want us to keep going through the initiative, or did we want to go back to the stems? I'm
How are
not,
people feeling? Do we want to keep going through this or wait till we get more of a, we may end up having you come back and talk about the initiative when we have more info. I kind of feel like we're going to be flailing about a bit with the initiative until we get a little more information. Is that, okay, so let's,
It would also be good to have the other departments here with us.
great, yes, have a party. Okay, so there's probably a couple more ups and downs you want us to look at?
yeah, so I think we left off at 3 squares. So 3 squares font is again, where the cash out benefits and the summer EBT benefits flow through us to beneficiaries. It's 100% federally funded, and we're just adjusting it to account for utilization and caseloads. It's just an increase in federal funding.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost my spreadsheet, so we found it. Okay, I'm not seeing questions on 3 squares.
So that brings us up.
Oh, wait,
Just one.
go ahead.
We have an awful lot of food programs in the state. Do you folks feel that there's no overlap, no misalignment of anything there?
Miranda wants to weigh in on that.
Whether
There's
there's,
overlap or misalignment amongst the many food programs.
I guess I would want to know more where you were thinking there was maybe some overlap and misalignment.
We've got school programs, we've got summer programs, we've got the food bank, we're giving money, 3 squares, we're still at about 15 or more food programs in total in the state, something on the order of maybe $200 million. I'm just wondering, do you feel there's no overlap or anything in that?
I'm not sure it's that much, Wayne. I don't think it's $200 million.
It is, we'll see.
Not sure what you're counting, but
I did a little assessment.
maybe we should get that confirmed.
You can share it, just so.
Yeah.
We'll see where to go.
Okay, we'll take a look. I mean, I think the programs that I'm aware of do different things. Yeah.
Right? Like, so we have meals for children when they're in school. Summer, the summer program is providing access, and it's a pretty small benefit, to be able to help families be able to purchase some food while their children aren't able to access those summer meals. And food shelves, I mean, I even think of our SNAP, our 3 squares benefit is supplementary. And when you look at like what the benefit amount is, and I know that there are, I should That's probably off the top of my head, but there's like a challenge, like for us, for you and I to go and see, like, can we support our family off this budget? What were the meals? Right, like they are really truly trying to supplement, and that's where food shelves also, depending on what community you live in, like they have limits. Some people can only go once a week, once a month. So I think we need a lot of these resources to be in place.
When we were looking at SNAP, when the government shutdown happened, the number I seem to recall is that for one person, their SNAP benefit was $30 a week. So living on $30 a week,
Right,
week after week is not
I understand.
easy to do, so.
If I don't ask the question, I don't have anybody thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that brings us to B 323, which is reach up. So the first line item on there is a $3.3 million reduction to our caseload costs based on the caseloads that were projected last year when we were building this year's the base budget versus where we're seeing caseloads land now, and those projected forward. And we use the projections from our consultant, and then we use 3-year trends in the cost per case to project out. And as a result, we have some significant savings that we can realize in reach up.
So is that because people are not eligible because they're making more money and they don't qualify? The caseload change.
I think we're seeing a national trend, that the caseloads are decreasing. I do think, in part it probably has something to do with the benefit amount, and then also just like what employers are paying. I think we saw that during the height of the pandemic, right? Like, so people, it wasn't just minimum wage, they're paying people $20 an hour. And so people are paying $20 an hour, unless you have a larger family, you're probably not eligible for reach up benefits.
Great, thank you.
The next line item is the Reach First program cut. It's the elimination of the Reach First program, which provides short-term targeted support for households as part of a diversion strategy. And this program, this is a program that was meant to divert people from Reach Up, and only a small number of households are served by the program. We think we can absorb these costs within the Reach Up budget. It's an average of 15 households per month, with an average of $928 per household for up to 4 months. And then we have the pregnant and parenting bed reduction. So this reduces the maximum number of DCF contracted beds at Lund by 3 beds to a total of 23 beds available. Lund has not had more than 22 beds utilized at one time for over a year. And so we feel confident that even with this reduction, we still are providing ourselves with a buffer. The next line item is similar to the GA one that we saw, which was again an agreement with Weber that provides support. We're eliminating this agreement that provides support to households that are Reach Up eligible in applying and receiving Social Security benefits. And again, we haven't seen the substantial increase in application for an approval by SSA as a result of this agreement. Then we have our Reach Up housing agreement cuts. And this is the elimination of grants to provide housing case management supports to Reach Up households. We're providing housing case management services already through various other venues within DCF. And so we think this is a duplicative service that will be addressed via the housing initiative.
So people will still get the services that they need, just somewhere else.
Yes. And then finally, the last one is the other half of the third part of the TANF revenue realignment.
Right, it had to go down somewhere.
Yeah.
Fund. Okay.
So that's Reach Up.
Okay. Any questions?
So then we move on to LIHEAP. We're just seeing an increase here in our ask for LIHEAP's budget. It's all federal funding, and we've just seen we've been asking for it via ERR in the past, and now we're just building it into the budget. To align with our award. And then OEO, we're gonna skip through some items. And then we have the positions that we talked about in BAA on here. We are asking to utilize some of the increases that we're seeing in our HOP budget to support these positions in providing those sort of grant management supports needed to operationalize that. The really significant investments in the HOP program that we're seeing.
Where do we see the money for HOP?
So HOP, if you scroll down farther, so it's in the grants out section of OEO, which is
Oh, I see, there's like a whole bunch of different, well, no.
yeah, so it.
That's the housing initiative down there.
Well, so the housing initiative does have some investments in the HOP program. So I'm looking at BAA, that's why it's not on there.
Wasn't it like 32 million or something for HOP last year?
Well, I should know that, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Lily, is that about right?
And I think Megan's trying to fill it up because we are asking for additional funds for outside of the housing initiative. And I think what we're trying to do, and appreciate your feedback, and we can work to refine this for Thursday's presentation. The difference between housing initiative, which is more, I think, kind of like new things versus addressing base pressures with the HOP budget. So you'll see an increase in the HOP budget for shelter operating costs based on investments that we've already made this year to increase shelter capacity, as well as we're looking to bring the extreme cold weather shelter program into base funding. It was funded this year with one-time funding. So that would be new. So those two things are housing related, of course, but not necessarily part of that housing issue, because again, we see them as base pressures that we're committed to. And those should be in there. You know, just trying to let Megan find it so she can.
Yeah, so
orient to
I can
the
share,
route.
I can share my screen again to show you where it is on, I can find the Zoom link again now. Where it is on the budget.
It looks like there's some positions involved too.
So you'll see here that this is the GF, it's all the HOP investments are in GF. And we have the 6.2 million that's, as Lily spoke to, that sort of the base impacts of investments that we're making this year. We
Is
have
that new? Is that new in HOP investments, or is that?
There'll be an increase to the operating for shelters that were, again, starting this year or expecting to come online next year.
Okay, and how much are we spending in HOP now? Before the 6.2 million addition?
So our budget last year was 29.7 million for HOP, and this year, the budget for 26 was 29.7.
Yep.
And the budget that we're proposing for 27 is 37.5 million.
37.5 million, okay.
And that doesn't account for several of the components that are in OEO's budget. We're sort of budgeting those separately, that not within the HOP budget. So that's not including like the family specific shelters or the medically vulnerable shelters. Those are separate. We've
I see the housing initiative sections all down there.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, so will those who provide, like the CAP agencies that provide support and financial assistance, will they still be doing that under this budget? Is there a line item for the CAP services that support folks who are homeless?
So, to clarify, I think what you're talking about is the HOP funded client financial assistance, which is funded by administrators, not just the community action agencies. So some of them play that role, but not all of them. And in other communities, there are other providers. So And that goes to other people experiencing homelessness or have, or at risk of homelessness. This budget does not, so the Housing Opportunity Grant Program budget covers a range of activities, which is helpful to leverage, as the discussion was earlier, to support local planning and respond to local needs. This budget does not particularly increase that line item, so we would not expect to see an increase. So that it really
But
accommodates.
is it level funded? I'm sorry.
I was just, can I ask you to be more specific? Did you continue the FY 26 $1.37 million decrease?
So that was an end primarily based on the end of one-time funding. And so, yes, we would not expect that to be addressed in this
Yeah.
budget.
Yes, you continued that decrease. That's the question you're asking.
It is, yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, Wayne.
So all this is going out as contracts. And so are these positions, are those some managing contracts?
Grants, that's
Or grants, right?
most of the OEO is grant. There is, I think, Lily, you do have contracts for family supportive housing, permanent supportive housing.
Families for housing and parents for housing, our contracts and primarily billing Medicaid rates. These are grants and the positions are not so much doing grant contract administration, but really doing more training and technical assistance activities. So for instance, this includes monitoring shelters, doing habitability inspections, monitoring program and policy to make sure that they're adhering to our standards. Data analysis, we receive quarterly and annual reports. That helps make sure that, for instance, shelter beds are being utilized, or that spending is on track, or that they're not running into issues with operations. So it's more of that type of training and technical assistance positions.
So the work that has to be done for grants and contracts, so that's all in-house and other part, you're in your general budget for staff members on board.
We're absorbing that currently, and again, as we've grown, we've seen more of the need to bring on the staff is around again, that training, technical assistance and monitoring. It is a heavy workload for our staff, but we do manage to get these out the door over the summer, and our staff put in tremendous work to make that happen.
So, we kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but we also are proposing baseline funding to, continue the cold weather shelter investments that we made with one-time funding this year in the future. And then there's, all of the various components of the housing initiative.
Well, I'm looking up under personal services, and it looks like you've got new positions.
So those are three limited service positions that were funded in various capacities in the past, and we're asking to build them into the budget moving forward as limited service positions, but funded with state dollars rather than various other mechanisms. One was funded with ERAP and the others were funded via one-time funds.
So you want to put them in the base, which means they won't be limited service for very long.
I think you can still have a limited service position.
Well,
In the
but if
base.
you have it and you're putting it in the base, I'm imagining the long-term plan is to get them to be classified or something, not limited service.
We build limited service positions into the base on occasion for grants that are for like things that are really tied to a specific funding source. Because we know that, it should, it's those things are connected.
And. Okay, keep going.
So I know we're over time, so I don't know how much you.
Oh, we are, aren't we? Yeah. Weatherization,
Weatherization, there's nothing really interesting happening there. Just the $1 million federal fund adjustment again, just
Yeah.
revenue.
and then
adjustment.
you've got secure residential and there's $1 million.
Yes. So, yeah, so the secure residential is associated with our, west, just get caught up in where I am. So after state fiscal year 26, DCF will have fully utilized all our one-time funding and carry forward for secure treatment facilities. And as we do not yet have a permanent secure residential treatment facility in place, we will continue to utilize Red Clover, which is our temporary secure facility in state fiscal year 27. We will also be operating a short-term stabilization treatment facility in Wyndham that has 3 beds capacity. And that will be an ongoing, it's not a temporary, it's a permanent facility. And so combined, the operating need for those 2 facilities is about 8 million, along with other grants and contracts that we have. And so we're asking for base funding to fully fund our West River Haven, is that what it's called? West River Haven, which is the new short-term stabilization facility in Wyndham. And then we're asking for one-time funds for our temporary Red Clover facility as we continue to work towards a plan of future permanent facility somewhere in the state.
Good deal. This is $1 million a bed, right?
Sorry?
It's very expensive, $1 million to.
That's it sounds like a good deal.
So in DDS, it's pretty standard.
Yes, DDS, the only items that are, we have a cost of living adjustment for our temp position that we require to be able to do the work that DDS does. And then everything else is just salaries.
So what I was looking for, which Tiff pointed out to me on the very first page, and we can talk about it when you come back and talk more about the housing initiative, but there's 21 positions related to the housing initiative, which is separate from whatever we have to do for more administration for Medicaid. That must be housed somewhere else. All the eligibility, is that housed in central office? For Diva? Diva?
Yeah.
Get lost.
Okay, this is the housing. So these are the positions that support the GA program and generally do eligibility determinations and like we have bill payers, we have, the work that happens around administering the emergency housing program. And
Are these new positions or are they being transferred?
they're existing positions, they've funded out of one-time appropriations for several years now. And so we are just putting the money for them into the base budget because we know that the housing program isn't going away and we will have need for positions to support whatever.
Well, it's a very interesting couple of hours. I'm sure everybody else's heads are swirling like mine is, or maybe they're not, but I think we've gotten a bunch of our questions answered. We really appreciate your time, but we will get you back after we figure out, I know you're presenting in Human Services on Thursday on the housing initiative, and then we'll confer and figure out the best way to get you back to talk more about that so we can understand. It's a lot of money and it's a big change and we're all tired now, so we'll have you come back and talk about it. And whoever else you think should be here, we'll organize the best way we can. So
Awesome. Thanks.
great. Thank you very much. Thank you online, everybody that's been there. Thank you, everybody who's come. Really appreciate it.
Great questions.
So committee, we will take, why don't we break to 3:25? Because we have legal aid coming and that's our last thing for the day. No, is it legal aid?
Yeah, are you supposed to be out?
It is legal aid. Yeah.